Teardown time. This is a heated blanket controller, AC into one side, then it controls some resistance wires here which heat up in the blanket. If you draw your attention to the wires here, you can see they're kind of scorched. Unfortunately, this unit pulled out of the blanket a bit. These wires got crossed, and they, of course, didn't like that very much. However, the blanket was smart enough to recognize something was amiss, and the controller shut down the electricity, so didn't go much further than this. Let's take this apart and see how it was built. So probably the best place to start in reverse engineering is take a look at the cable which actually creates the heat. This is a side view of the cable. Obviously lots going on in terms of complexity. There's an outer sheath here which is sort of white plastic, and then there's an inner one. I suspect they do this for waterproofing purposes. You can actually wash a blanket, believe it or not, this electric. And then you can see a very thin ribbon of nichrome wire wrapped around probably some fibers. That just changed the picture and spooled it. Here it is unspooled a bit. You can see the nichrome actually isn't a circular wire, but like a ribbon. I believe the fibers here are probably for strength. They basically keep the wire from being pulled apart. So there you go, 4 pieces of technology all stuffed into that wire. Okay, so I took a chunk of that wire, about 31 inches long, about 80 centimeters, and I'm measuring it with a no-meter. And as you could imagine, there's some resistance to it, kind of proving that basically a heated blanket is just a giant waterproof resistor. But of course, it's a little bit more than that. To safely power this resistor up, there's going to be a lot of electronics. Let's take a look at the circuit board that was in the control head and sort down some even more interesting engineering, quite frankly. This is the main control board, and actually it's got lots of components on it which indicate lots of things go on. Star of the show, I suppose, in terms of control is a microprocessor chip that sits in the middle. User presses a button here. There's a series of LEDs which indicate how warm the blanket is supposed to get. These power transistors up here, I would strongly suspect, control the amount of electricity flowing into the blanket this way. AC enters in here and goes through these 3 components here. Lots of safety related items there, which are really quite interesting to tear down. This here is a 393. It is a comparator chip, almost certainly probably used to look at where the triacs are switching, then telling the microprocessor when to turn off, so it has the right duty cycle. A little processor like this requires only a few volts to run. However, of course, in my country, 120 volts over here. Big voltage, you got to go from 120 to 5, and you got to do it as cheap as possible. Almost certainly something called a capacitive dropper. That's probably this big capacitor here. We'll sort that circuit down as well. Cool, lots of stuff going on. Let's take a look at this processor, strip it down to the silicon level, and take a look at that die. It's quite a pretty one. So zooming in, we find a part from a company out of Taiwan called Holtec, the HT66F018. It is a classic embedded processor. It has a 8-bit RISC core in the middle here, and then associated with it there's a program memory. It's 4 kilowords, and then there's an EEPROM, which is 64 bytes. They look similar, but I believe this one, the processor can modify the contents. This one here is kind of, it's programmed at the factory, and I don't think it can change its contents. And the RAM, 64 bytes, a whopping huge processor, but very appropriate for trying to control a blanket. An A to D converter, which is probably handy in trying to sense the zero crossing of AC when you're controlling those triacs. A comparator, same thing, although it's interesting, there's an external set of comparators as well, so this processor chip wasn't quite enough. But all the classic building blocks to build a processor. And here's the die. Middle bits, basically the digital gates, those are all laid out by a CAD tool, standard cells. The program memory, the 4 kiloword memory is over here. I strongly suspect that the EEPROM is over here, and then in here is the associated voltage level shifters. This of course becomes the little 64 bytes of RAM. Other bits, the analog bits, the timers, they sit in these blocks here, here. And then of course you can see the smattering of connections. So absolutely classic bit of compute, very appropriate for controlling an electric blanket. Okay, two large power transistor-like entities on this board. They're both marked BT134. Pretty easy to find a date sheet on these. They've been around for quite some time. Here's the one from Philips Semiconductor. Kind of a neat device. Basically, you put a voltage onto the gate, and then the Triac is basically two back-to-back SCRs. It'll conduct current in both directions. And then the only way to turn a Triac off is actually to remove the current from the terminals. The gate will not be allowed to turn anything off. Now, of course, you can do that when you're controlling an AC signal, because then the AC goes to a zero crossing, and then you can remove the gate control, and the Triac will stop conducting. So this is a silicon die. Let's see. You can see if you zoom in a little bit, you can see there's a line here, which implies a different diffusion layer. Looks like there's a bunch here, basically about 3 here. Now, nice thing about having not to guess here is that the US patent system is an absolute gold mine. Looks like Philips Semiconductor invented the Triac. Patent's quite old, 3 million, 1973, about 50 years ago. But basically, this is what it looks like: a P layer, an N layer, P layer, N layer, N layer, and an N layer. I suspect the gate sitting here is here. Then it leaves us two terminals. Either one's in the top and one's in the back, or I am suspecting one's here and one's here. So basically that is a Triac. Journey at the AC input, there's 3 components actually. 2 of them are worthy of comment. The AC comes in, it goes through a fuse, which is pretty good for a safety perspective. There's something called a metal-oxide varistor that basically will clamp out voltage spikes that are high in intensity. And then there is a class X capacitor. The capacitor is just on the parallel traces between the 2 AC lines. The idea of a capacitor, of course, is it presents a low impedance to a high frequency signal like noise, so it prevents noise from being pushed back out and interfering with other electronics. A class X capacitor is special in that it will fail short, and of course if it fails short, then the fuse blows. So I cross-sectioned the 2 AC components. This is the X series capacitor, basically snubbing out noise on the assembly from getting back into the AC line, causing interference elsewhere. It's a film capacitor, which is basically layers of metal and mylar. I was reading through the literature about these kind of capacitors, and apparently they have a good self-healing property that should the dielectric get punched through, it tends to cause a little bit of melting, and then it sort of self-heals itself. So what this part does is prevents noise from the assembly getting back onto the line and interfering elsewhere. The other part is the metal-oxide varistor. Its claim to fame is if it sees large, like 1 kilovolt spikes, it becomes conductive. Otherwise, it's completely inert. There's 2 leads to it. This is the lead on one side, and obviously there's a metal paddle. This is the oxide here, and it's symmetric on the other side. So a neat device invented by General Electric, I believe, back in perhaps 60s, late 60s, early 70s as well. So mainstays of any AC assembly, these X-series capacitors and metal oxide varistors. Let's take a look at this part here, a dual comparator Mark 393. I'll just pull up a classic data sheet. This is a differential comparator. The building block of any comparator is these 2 transistors here. They basically form the heart of a comparator. A current mirror here, some constant current sources up there, and a driver section out here. And if we take a look, and it's bipolar, of course. If we take a look at the die photograph, quite clearly a symmetric design coming down here. It looks like the differential pair sits here. You can see the 2 inputs, power up here, ground here. And if you zoom in, you can, of course, easily sort down the individual transistors. Interesting, there's a comparator on the actual Holtec microcontroller, but it looks like they needed a little more, a couple more to complete their design. Alright, one last bit of the board that we haven't yet fully explored. That's the power supply to power up the little microcontroller. basically all the parts down here are doing that function. It is known as a capacitive drop power supply. There's an excellent article in the Wikipedia on this. There's a good diagram in there that I snagged. You can see the AC coming in on these two inputs here. Runs through a full-wave bridge rectifier, and of course you just think there's lots of voltage here, but then you draw your attention to the fact they throw a capacitor right here, and that basically scales down the voltage to a very small amount because it only passes real power across, and the microcontroller is drawing very little real power, so knocks it down very, very quickly. And then usually to get it a little bit closer, there's a little linear regulator. It's shown as a shunt regulator here. I'm not sure if this particular board has a similar one, but they're all kind of in this style. But this is a very inexpensive way of taking 100 or so volts and dropping it down to 3.3 or 5 volts very quickly with the minimum possible cost. Well, there we go, another reverse engineer exercise in what's probably perceived as a pretty mundane device, but it's packed with sophisticated integrated circuits, analog integrated circuits, wire which has been carefully considered in its construction, and some analog semiconductors, and a whole bunch of neat protection devices. If you like this video, I would certainly appreciate a thumbs up, and I'll see you on the next one.